in person, of course, but it's fine to see some familiar faces and some new ones. What I'm going to cover, as mentioned, and it was kind of, I knew it, but whatever, I couldn't tell. So the idea is to respect the topic and really focus primarily on Windows development with Delphi as an overall theme. But because we've just released the product yesterday, and again, kind of released, and then we'll do the final bits of release today. We are, I'm going also to touch on new things in Delphi 11 that are relevant to the topic. I mean, I do have one slide with the list of features, but mostly, I mean, for any Q&A, any discussion we might want to have. But there are a few things that are relevant to the topic, so those I'll certainly cover. Now, as I was already introduced, I'm currently the product manager for Delphi, and well, RStudio in general. It's not really, I mean, it's a single product with multiple things in it. And I've been doing this job for quite some time now. It's 8 years. So, and before that, I was mostly doing was a consultant and doing training and well, writing books, which I still happen to do at times. I mean, I do have this one. This was just out earlier this year. It's the latest book on the language, if you want, and it's available in PDF, free thanks to Embarcadero, and it's available on print on demand via Amazon. So having said that, the topics I want to cover, it's fairly simple. It's what's happening on Windows, how Delphi and VCL, but also touch base on FireMonkey shortly, just for a smaller amount of time. How Delphi and VCL are supporting Windows, and because just released, hey, what's new in Delphi 11, specifically again related with Windows development. So the first thing I want to discuss a bit is the Windows platform evolution. Now, that could take a full hour in itself, because it's fairly complicated, but whatever. So before we get to this specific content of the slide, let me back up a second and get a bit of the bigger picture. So Windows as a platform has always had like an API, which is a C language API primarily, augmented by some COM-based API, so slightly object-oriented API, primarily used for desktop integration and a few other areas. And those traditional APIs have been around for a long time. At some point, and I'm talking about, well, almost 20 years ago, Microsoft decided, hey, that doesn't work. Let's move to something else. They came out with .NET and all of that stuff. And they started to say, hey, .NET is the future. Get rid of the Windows API because we want everyone to do .NET only. And in the future, Windows will only run .NET applications. They went around with that idea for a few years. Then they decided, hey, that's never going to work. So in Windows 8, they came up with yet another model, which was not .NET, it was not the original API. It's what was called the WinRT, the new Windows technology, the new Windows kernel technology, or whatever you want to call it. So WinRT is another API. It's completely separate, and it's loosely based on COM, but not really. Well, it doesn't have all of some of the burdens of COM. It doesn't require registry. It doesn't require the same factory mechanism for creating objects. But interestingly enough, from the Delphi perspective, it's very easy to target, because what happens is that in Delphi, I mean, the original API is just a C API, just call a function, kind of easy. Or you provide a function pointer for callback. In COM, you go through interfaces. Interfaces in Delphi are mapped to COM. And so you just use interfaces to map in COM. And you know what? WinRT uses the same exact binary compatible interface with COM. So interfaces map to WinRT classes and objects exactly the same way. Now, WinRT was supposed to take over. It was the universal Windows platform and was supposed to become a requirement, up to the point that all Windows 32 applications are going to be dead soon because, hey, WinRT is the next big thing and we're going to make it compulsory. I mean, that same thing you've already heard. And then the adoption of WinRT in Windows 8 was dismal, like there were 10 applications out there using it. So Microsoft started to scramble up, and by the time they did Windows 10, they were still trying to figure out exactly, but they decided, hey, let's open it up. They did one thing called Windows Desktop Bridge, which was, hey, let's grandfather, let's allow the old style application have a little say in this world. And we took advantage of it by allowing Delphi application to target a lot of the WinRT APIs, which has been in the product for actually several years now. But the reality is that the most nice APIs were not available because, hey, they required an application, they required some bits that were only for native WinRT or specific WinRT applications. So that's the history. And so we've gone from you need .NET, you need WinRT, oh, we provide you a bridge, to what they're now calling they used to call Project Reunion. So, okay, let's put everything together. Let's unify the API rather than having like separate APIs and this kind of schism within the Windows world. And interesting enough, Project Reunion puts one type of application at the center. And you know what? It's good old native Windows application like Delphi builds. So they have better support today of WinRT than .NET application have, or than the UWP applications have. So because reality is the largest majority of developers never moved on to these new systems and was using Visual C++ or other third-party tools, or Delphi or .NET, but using the old frameworks like WinForms that targets the Windows API. So that's where we are now. We are now at an interesting point where the primary system for developing Windows application is a native system. This Project Reunion is now called Windows App SDK. That's a nice name they picked to avoid any confusion with the Windows SDK, which is an unrelated, well, partially unrelated technology, because Windows SDK is only for the native applications, while Windows App SDK is this new unifying model for everything developers do on Windows. And the concept is that the idea is that you'll be allowed from Win32 to call any API and from UWP to call any API. So basically making all APIs available, but on top of it, they're adding new APIs for both families. Now, there are a couple of things that are relevant to mention. One is the Windows App SDK is not part of a Windows release. The bits are going to be included in Windows 11, but you will be able to install the same bits on Windows 10, and they keep promising Windows 7, which I don't see that happening, but maybe they'll do it. So the idea is that today, when Microsoft introduces a new API in, I don't know, the H1, which means the first part of the year release of like, if they introduce a new API in 2020 H1, means the release last year, first half of the year. If you are on an older version, you cannot call the API because, hey, it's not there. Now, this is orthogonal. You'll be able to download the SDK, the unupdated SDK, even if you're on an older version of Windows. So they're separating the version of Windows you target from the API. This is very nice for developers because you can leverage a new API and you don't have to wait for all of your user base to upgrade to the new version of the product. So that is certainly a nice thing. Now, what is inside this Windows App SDK? It's an assorted and incoherent number of different things that have nothing to do one with each other. Sorry, it's what it is. It's a bunch of things that we're missing. They're adding, they're integrating, and it's fairly confusing because they're really loosely related. And there are also multiple technical ways to download all of these bits. In the future, it will be unified, but it's not today. And by the way, Windows App SDK is not released. Release is expected towards the end of this year. So again, it's a kind of a work in progress. Now, there are some very nice elements in it. One is WebView 2, which I'm going to touch upon quite a bit. One is WinUI 3, which is a new set of user interface controls. Very nice, very sleek, and something that we're looking forward to support. But it's not ready. It's not working today. MSIX, which is an installation mechanism, a distribution mechanism, and also the way to publish through the store. And many other APIs. They have new resource management API for translation. They have new APIs for application lifetime. You'll be able to create an application that is a single instance without having to hack with handles, resources, H instances, and all of that stuff. You say, this application you can only run once. Okay, fine, done. It's a flag, and it's going to work out of the box, and so forth. There are like 20 or so projects as part of this SDK. Now, the last interesting thing, and then I move to something more practical, is this is really built in the open. So the development, the early bits, the preview, including code, is on GitHub. That GitHub repo for Windows App SDK is also where you can ask questions, suggest features, report bugs. It's everything. Everything is built in this GitHub. Well, open repo. Well, they own it. They're leveraging it. But hey, so overall, this is very important because somehow the future of Windows is strongly tied to the native platform, which Delphi developers have been using all over these years, at times fearing that Microsoft was going to cut them out of the future. That's not happening. Actually, we're back to the center. And these things are going to come up in pieces. And again, we are really focused and we have good relationship with Microsoft on this to support this feature. So now let's start looking at something really into it. And the first thing I want to mention is the Edge browser. Now, this is very nice because my Windows as a platform used to ship ActiveX component that drops Internet Explorer, and that's what TWeb browser in DCL has been using, what the welcome page has been using until yesterday, and a few. It's been popular for quite some time because it was nice to be able to plug in browser content, HTML, live web pages into a native application, but of course, big Internet Explorer totally abandoned. Now you can't even render pages or get much done. So the idea here is that Microsoft is doing a very nice thing. First, they're building a browser based on Chrome, or Chromium to be more specific, the open source version of Chrome. And so it's a modern browser. It works. Everything is smooth, and everything can render like almost every page properly. But the second thing is that they are releasing the engine behind the engine behind Edge as a component. Now, a couple of things to notice. First, you do not need to install Edge on a computer to have WebView 2. It is a component. Even if you have Edge, you still need to install the component. It's a separate piece of software, although it shares probably 90% of the code with Edge. So it's a separate piece of software. You can freely install on your customer's application. You can even distribute the installer yourself, and bundle it with your installer if you have one. So it's free to install. It's not intrusive. It does not install Edge as a separate application that's taking over your browsing experience on the machine. It just sits there silently as an embedded engine. But there is an advantage, and that's an advantage also compared to other solutions that have been popular in that field. For example, shipping Chromium through one of the interfaces like CEF3 or others. So in theory, you can obtain the same by shipping Chromium yourself. The problem is that Chromium and Chrome have an 8-week release cycle. So if you are shipping Chromium, the engine with your application, you are supposed, for security reason, to update your application every 8 weeks. That's 2 months. That's a lot, because otherwise you are in an insecure scenario. Microsoft is going to do that behind the scenes. This component, if you install what they call the Evergreen version, which is the standard one, these components automatically updates when there is a security update. And so your application will always use the latest and most secure version of the control automatically. Now, there is a chance that in one of these updates, they break something, but honestly, if you're not using a deep interface into the DOM and into the code, you can get that working nicely. So let me see if I can shift to demo, and if the demo works, because that's also not guaranteed. I have not run all of these demos actually in the latest version, so we'll see if everything is nice. I need to move here. Okay, Edge, that should be the right demo. Interesting. Okay, so this is a pretty bare-bone application. As you can see, there's only one button and one component, the Edge browser. You can also use the old T-Web browser. If you're using the old T-Web browser, you can decide if it uses Internet Explorer, if it uses Edge, or if it uses Edge, if it's available on the target machine, otherwise falls back to Internet Explorer, which is a reasonable option, honestly. So you can have multiple combinations. If you're using TH browser, you must have TH browser on the machine, and that's it. I mean, for simple coding, you just navigate to a page, and that's supposed to work. Now, there are 2 requirements actually for this application to work. One is that you need to have Edge, the engine, so WebView 2 engine running on the target machine. Let me build this before I forget. Yeah, I started it on a different resolution scale, so yeah, I should have restarted the IDE. I'll do that next. The other thing that you need is a special DLL that should be in this folder, hopefully. Yeah, WebView 2 Loader DLL. The way to get the DLL is to go into, actually it should be in the welcome page. Weird, okay. If you go on Get It, and you download this EdgeView 2 SDK, this is a Microsoft download. This download includes the DLL that is required to interface with Edge from your application. So what I've done is I've installed this, and then I went there, I grabbed one single file, this loader, and I put it in the same folder. So there's no registration. It's fairly simple, but that's a requirement. Otherwise, the application will not work. Notice that there are 2 loader libraries. There is a 32-bit one, and there is a 64-bit one, and you need the right one for the bitness of your application. If you're building a Win64-bit, you need the 64-bit one, and the opposite. Now, to make things a little funny, the 2 DLLs have the same name. So you have WebView 2 Loader DLL 32-bit and WebView 2 Loader DLL 64-bit. And there's no way to distinguish that rather than trying and see if it's, I don't know. I mean, I think it's insane. I mean, give them a different name. Come on. They're exactly the same name, but they're 2 different pieces, and they're incompatible. whatever. So with this, I should be able to run the application whether locally or from there. And if everything goes well, it's going to start WebView 2 and then go to the page and then download the page. And it works. I mean, I can even get like accept cookie. It renders, well, in this case on a small column, but let's see if I implemented stretching. Yeah, I did. So you can really get the entire page working, and you should be able to navigate and move around pages. So everything works. There are events that are sent back to you for like changing page, clicking on links. It's fairly rich in terms of events and that are surfaced from the application. Now, the advantage if you're using TEdge browser compared to using the generic TWeb browser is that you get a better mapping of methods and events to the new model. I mean, the two components are highly incompatible. Oh, they're still web browsers, but the APIs they surface and the events they surface are not really exactly the same. So the ability to integrate with the browser, if you want to go deeper than just do navigate, I recommend, if you are interested in using Edge, to use the Edge component, because it's more fine-tuned to what exactly the component does. Now, one small thing that we have just surfaced here is the user data folder. The component does heavy caching. So by default, it's going to open a folder under the executable and put all of the cache files there. It's a gazillion. I mean, it's a ton of things. You can use this property that was actually introduced, it wasn't originally in tab 4. You can use this property, use a data folder to say where you want the cache to be, which is relevant. Because, for example, if you're installing on a program files, you cannot create a folder and save files there. It's going to be a problem. So that's the concept. Again, it's fully programmable. I think Jim McKeith had a blog post this summer showing how you interact with DOM, JavaScript, run custom JavaScript, and do a bunch of things kind of lower level with the component. Ultimately, we expose the platform API, so you'll be able to use any API that Microsoft surfaces. The thing I might mention, well, let's actually cover it right away and get it out of the picture. Oops. I need to remember actually going back to. So the new thing. No, well, yeah, let's say. The thing we've just done and just released in Delphi 11 is same behavior, well, similar behavior for FireMonkey. So now FireMonkey has a component that's the same encapsulation, the same engine, Chrome, WebView 2, same requirements, installing the WebView 2 component, having the DLL available. We haven't built a specific component because FireMonkey aim is to be cross-platform. So what we've done, we've added a custom property that's only relevant on Windows called Windows Engine, which allows you to pick Edge, Internet Explorer anyway, or Edge if available, if not Internet Explorer. So that's the extra property. So you can switch from one browser to the other in a FireMonkey application running on Windows. Of course, the same application will run on other operating systems and behave in the same way. The mapping to events and properties is not so tight, so smooth, because again, this is general multi-platform web browser component. Okay, any question on the Edge component and related topics?
Marco, when would you have that none option in that option you just showed?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've no clue. Well, I assume that's a default, because if you don't care about Windows, you're just running on another platform. I don't know what it does when you pick none. Well, in theory, we could try that out. That would be a fun experiment. Maybe we found a bug, but hey, that's fine anyway. Well, I don't know what happens with none. Let's see. Well, it seems you get no browser. Yeah, so you get nothing. Well, kind of the name is correct. And now, yeah, it's weird that we have an option not to do what the component should do, but that's apparently doing nothing. So not using any engine, so just ignoring you. Okay, that's weird, but yeah, that's what it is. I would say this is kind of as designed, but it's odd. Okay. So anything else? Okay, let me move on. But feel free to jump in. I mean, anytime.
Marco,
so,
sorry, so you'd be able to use that Edge component with Windows 7, is that correct? Or
yes, I think that, let me go back one slide. I cannot grab the URL from here. Sorry. Yeah, I think Microsoft is releasing WebView 2 for Windows 7. I haven't tested it myself. That's you should. This is the developer page. There is another page which is the download page. I could, in theory, check it live. It's going to take a minute. I do WebView 2 download. Let's see what Microsoft is saying. Download now. They have they have 32-bit version, 64-bit version, ARM 64 version, but I'm not sure they let you pick one platform. Let me move this up here. This is the download page, the primary download page, and again, you can pick a specific version or. Let's see if I pick this one. No, there's only a download.
It's okay.
It probably knows my operating system. But yeah, I thought they've certainly mentioned supporting Windows 7, and whether it's really working today, I don't know. I think
I've used really it, Marco, on Windows 7.
Sorry?
I think I've used it on Windows 7.
Okay.
A few years ago, when we last had the discussion about the update in
again, yeah, that's what Microsoft has discussed. I mean, they want to have this on Windows 7. I haven't tested it myself, but I'm expecting it to work. Okay. Okay, let me move on because I have like a gazillion things. So next thing, and here I don't think I'm going to demo because I don't have that virtual machine fully configured and set up. So I'm going to only go through some of the pieces. So MSIX. MSIX is a distribution model like many others. I mean, these days, most of the platforms, you're not installing an application by providing a bunch of files in a folder. You're distributing an application providing a zip file with one of the many names, whether it's an APK, it's an ISA, it's whatever. They're all zip files. I mean, Apple, iOS, macOS, Android, they're all zip files. But the zip file has some metadata that helps the system determine what to do. plus the executable plus other files that you might want to distribute along, like a database file, whatever. So here it's similar. Both Apex and MSAX are technically zip files. The reason you want to do it is twofold. One is because this is a great distribution model for enterprises. It's this application needs to be signed. It provides some extra security and so forth. Second, this is currently the way to distribute, to have your application uploaded and distributed through the Microsoft Store, which is an interesting model. It's great if you have a free application, you can put it there and the distribution is on Microsoft. And also people can search it on the Windows Store app easily. But even for paid application, because Microsoft is taking a relatively small chunk, I think a 15% cut, and manage everything, it can be considered. Now, what is relevant to know beside the technique that, I mean, you go through steps, you create the MSAX, you distribute it. What you are building when you're going through MSAX is you're building a different type of application, or better, you are wrapping the application in what we can call as a light container or a virtualized execution environment. But they've got multiple names. It's not really Docker, but the idea is that an application distributed through MSAX or Apex is an application that has first can be installed without admin permission, so easy to install, but at the same time has limited access to the operating system. In particular, it has a virtualized file system access, so it can only see sections of the file system, its own area, plus shared user documents and so forth. And same for the registry. It has got full access to the registry. It has a limited view of the registry. The goal there is security. An application installed through MSAX cannot format your hard drive, I mean, or do something like really weird on your system, like a Windows application can generally do freely because, hey, it's the API, everything is there. So you do not use, it cannot be elevated using user account control. There's not such a concept. It remains at lower permission level, at a user permission level. So this is a great way for distribution and for safe distribution within an enterprise, and for the bridge. And this predates the Project Reunion Windows App SDK, but it's one of the cornerstones. Today, some of the features of WinRT are available only if you package your application. This is the Microsoft terms for saying distributed through MSAX. They say a packaged application. Non-packaged application don't have the same rights. Now they're trying to expand the non-packaged application rights. So MSAX at the end of the project will not be required to call any specific API, but it's still a nice distribution model. So I recommend taking a look into it. Now, in practical terms, what you need to do if you want to use that distribution is in your project options, if this pops up, go to deployment, and you can pick Win32, well, because this is Win32 application store. Now, if you pick application store, so meaning you want to generate the MSAX, you have still two options. One is ad hoc, meaning you are providing a certificate and a password. That's what you want to do for local testing, for building a local MSAX and testing. You need to pick your certificate. You can also create a self-signed certificate. Then you need to register the certificate as a trusted certificate in the operating system. Otherwise, you won't be able to run the application because it's unknown. So it takes like 20 minutes to set up. I mean, it takes time. I'm not going to demo it in full, but with a certificate, you can do ad hoc when you're doing deploy of your application. And at that step, I can actually do. Okay, wait. Gosh. I thought I had a certificate. Maybe not. No, it doesn't look like. Okay, good. Have a nice username and a nice password. Oh, wait. What's wrong? Oh, sorry. Yeah, I need to pick a file here. Well, not here. Okay, so I'm creating this local certificate, which again, I won't really be able to do much until I register it locally. But what I can do now is basically, if I pick this target, if I pick this target and rather than Windows 32-bit regular, I go for application store. Now, if I do even run, honestly, oh no, I have to install the SDK because it has tools. Okay, I'm not going to do it. You install the SDK, you are going to build an MSIX file. Now, if you do run, you can't run an application. You can only create the installer. You get a screen like, wait, not here. You get a screen like this one. If you double click on your MSIX file or Apex file, that you want to install locally. But then that requires a local permission. And then if you go through the steps, you have the application installed as part of the Windows Store application. So it gets installed into the Windows app, a special Windows app folder within your system.
Marco?
The other, yes?
Can you still run it in the debugger to see what the restrictions are? And if you run into a problem with that type of application?
Well, technically you cannot run it in the debugger, but you can attach the debugger to it.
Okay, good.
So yeah, that's kind of the work, because you cannot run it from anywhere else. But once it's running, because it is a regular Windows app, you can attach the debugger to it and do the debugger. It's a little more.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not
okay.
as
Thanks.
and it's true, we have seen differences occasionally in the behavior. Like for example, at times they would load a different version of a system library compared to a regular application. I mean, Microsoft says, oh, it's identical, same things, there's no difference. That's not true. For a little time, FireMonkey application were flickering on package. Whatever. Then we found the bug, but it was really weird because the same exact application would behave differently. Okay, last thing I wanted to show, if I go back here in the project options, okay, so when you're here, this is ad hoc. I mean, this is like for a local test, or if you want to do like an enterprise distribution. In this case, you shouldn't use a self-signed certificate, you should have full certificate. But the other option is store distribution. Now, if you go for store distribution, you get all of these fields here: package name, publisher, display name, publisher. Now, these fields, you don't fill these fields to create the package. What you need to do is you need to go on the Windows App Store. You need to create an account, which is a paid account, but it's an extremely cheap lifetime account. I think it's like, I don't know, 20 euros. I mean, $25 lifetime. So it's not really expensive, or something. Maybe for a company, it's like $100. I don't know, but it's really cheap. And again, it's not like Apple that you have to pay every year. You pay it once, you're done. So in the store, you create an application or an application placeholder. It's going to give you a package name, which is like a ID. So basically, this information you need to grab from the store and port into your application. Is going to be saved in the manifest, And if it doesn't match, you cannot publish the application. So you don't type things here that you come up with. You need to provide the exact information that is part of your store application. So you create the application with store placeholder, then you put the data here, create the MSIX, upload it, and then the application is on the store. Okay. Now back to the slides. Yeah, I mean, we've had support for Apex for a few years now. Now we've removed it and switched to MSIX, although this might cut out some old, there might be some version of Windows support one and not the other, but honestly, because the primary goal is store distribution, and Microsoft is really pushing towards MSIX, we felt this was a better model. Eventually, you can use command line tools from the Windows SDK to generate an Apex and MSIX. I mean, there are documented steps, although they are a bit cumbersome, to do manually what we are automating in the IDE. Okay, now multi-monitor and so forth, and I have a bunch of slides that I'm going just to skim through but I want to keep them around just to give some foundation. This is what we've done recently as kind of primary goal. One of the most relevant things today in terms of supporting the latest Windows is not supporting new APIs or supporting new platform features, but it's supporting the new hardware that Windows often comes with, and namely the new high resolution screens that people have. This is one of the main issues that a developer on Windows has to face when migrating an old application to the new system. Yes, true, you can run with compatibility layer, meaning the pixels are stretched, but the application looks ugly or doesn't look readable and so forth. Or you can adopt one of the new models. Now, Microsoft has implemented like at least 4 different models while trying to support high DPI. They were all a bit messed up until they came up with this per monitor V2, another oddly named thing. Per monitor V2 is where you want to be, is what we are targeting, is the default target for both VCL and FireMonkey applications. And from RStudio 11, it's also the configuration of the IDE. It's not compulsory. You can pick your target. Just go to the manifest configuration, the application configuration in project options, and you can pick any of the targets. But per monitor V2 is really recommended. It does 2 things, although the name is a bit weird. It has good high DPI monitor support, but also good multi-monitor support where when a customer, a user has 2 monitors with different resolutions, because it has APIs that allow you to query for the sizes, I don't know, the toolbar size of the toolbar on the screen the form is onto, which was the missing piece in previous implementations of the Windows APIs. So we've done a few things, and for the oldest ones like DPI image list, I'm not going to go through demos and details. We've done a few things to support this model. One is having image lists with multiple resolutions. So the idea of the image list is you have a bunch of images, but of course, you can, if you pick one resolution, that they will, scaling up, they will be blurred, but even scaling down is not ideal. I mean, if you're scaling at 128-bit, well, 128-bit pixel image to like, I don't know, 32 by 32, it's not a given that you'll get a good crisp image. So the idea is with the high DPI, with the image list component, you can provide multiple images for different resolutions. Here, for example, there is a 16 by 16, 24 by 24, 128 by 128. So the same image, you provide 3 resolutions. Now, you define this image collection. Now, what happens is that most of the Windows APIs I don't know, a tree view, a toolbar, even a button. When you use they require an image list component. And the big issue is that at the API level, at the operating system level, Microsoft has not updated the platform and the API to support the concept of 4K screen. In Microsoft, you have one image list with images, period. That's it. So what we do, we have created a virtual image list that basically will look at the monitor, we look at the monitor the form is onto, we look at the resolution, and then we'll ask to the image collection, give me images at this resolution. If they're available, a perfect match, you get those. If they're not available, the image collection can scale up and down the images. It will use the closest resolution available, will scale up and down to the required resolution. At the end of the day, it provides an image list, which is, again, an operating system object, an HImage handle, that Microsoft thinks is an old-fashioned one, although it's been built dynamically through this mechanism. The nice thing about this is that you move a window from one screen to the other, and it will get a new snapshot of images automatically without having to write any code. Now, it is a bit complicated, but what we did was overcome a severe limitation of the operating system, because the operating system has not got a decent concept of scalable images for image lists. So we provided it. The other thing that's relevant that happened, again, couple of releases back, is the rerouting of get system metrics. Get system metric is the key API here because it allows you to ask for the system metrics, but there is a new version that allows you to ask for the system metric for a given monitor. So what we are doing here is we've implemented a T-control get system metrics that will return you the right system metrics for the control using the form hosting the control. So two caveats here. It's not the control, it's the form hosting it. And that is correct, because if you have a form that's across monitors, one monitor should win. Otherwise, you get things like scaled oddly. The other thing that's relevant is that both the image collection and potentially some other APIs, if you put them in the data module, you get in trouble because the data module doesn't know what screen. I mean, it hasn't got the concept of a screen. So you can put the image, you can put the image, the upside image collection into data module, but you need to have the virtual image list component on the form because the form will drive the resolution. So that's something we did in 10.3. Then in 10.4, we adopted the same model for VCL styles. So now VCL styles are fully high DPI aware. And this happens because for the same image, the checkbox, the radio button, or whatever, we provide, again, multiple resolution at different scaling. We have this naming convention. You provide images that are called underscore 10x, 20x, or actually there's no underscore because this is a screenshot. 15x, 20x, 30x to say this is a 30% scale, this is the 20%, 200% scale, and so forth. And again, the system will pick the nearest one and do a little scaling if needed. So that was quite a significant amount of work. Now, I do have one demo that kind of shows the concept, although I can do scrolling between monitors and while sharing. But let me see if I move to, okay, here. I need to find the right demo though. Okay, this one shows the image list, I think. Yeah, okay. So this application has an image collection. The image collection has, it's taken from the screen. For every image has multiple resolutions. multiple elements. And then what the application does, it uses those in this toolbar and in this button. If you're using a traditional image list, when you're scaling, the images remain small, and that's fairly ugly. If you pick the virtual image list connected to the image collection, and you do that by using this toggle list button. Now what's happening, but when you scale, the system is going to pick a higher resolution image, and that will look nice at a high resolution. Now the scaling is what happens if you move into a high DPI monitor. It's the same core operation. Okay, and yeah, the other thing, let's see if I have a quick demo here. No, I don't think I have it. That's fine. Oh, system metrics. Yeah, that's it. So this application just queries for the system metrics. And if I run it here, because this is a low screen monitor, I'm going to get the same value. And I cannot drag it out because it's a VM. I mean, I do have another monitor, but that's never going to work. If you move it to a high resolution monitor, you get a difference between the initial DPI and the current DPI. It depends on the monitor you're onto. Now, the interesting thing is that what we're doing, we're capturing this API and redirecting it to a custom function that eventually, depending on your version of Windows, so if you're on an older version of Windows, that will be ignored. If not, it's going to call a different API, which is get system metrics for DPI. This is the key turning point. This API is available only if you're using per monitor v2, and it's what makes the difference in the entire system. Okay, having said that, let me go back to my slides. Next thing, and I'm going to demo it differently. Per control styling, adoption of styles has been hindered by the fact that you might have an application with 100 forms and you don't want to have all 100 forms styled at the same time because it's a lot of work. So starting from 10.4, you can have per form styling. You can have a form that is styled and a form that uses the platform styles. Even more, each control in a form can be styled or not. So if you're using a third-party control that doesn't support styles, you can disable styling for that individual control. And that allows you to build, it allows a lot of flexibility in the application styling. Now, I'm not going to showcase this here because I'm going to anticipate one of the demos that are for the new release, which is the ability not just to use styling, but to use styling at a design time. So that is actually quite something, because in the past, I mean, until 2 days ago, unless you were in the beta, at design time, you would only see a traditional Windows form. Then you had to run it to get a feeling of the effect of the application once running with the style. That was nice, but not exactly great. Now you can preview the styles at design time, meaning that if I go for Windows 10 Blue, I get a new form. I even get a new toolbar, a new title bar that matches the style. But at the same time, I can pick one individual component and change its styling. Well, this doesn't do anything different. Who cares? Or decide that individual component is unstyled. To say unstyled, you pick Windows. Windows meaning it uses the Windows painting. Doesn't use. This is not the name of a style. It's kind of a default mechanism, because if you leave that field empty, it means use the parent font style. So we need two defaults. One is empty, meaning the parent, and the other is Windows, meaning the platform styling. So with this, the style name listed here are the styles that are active in your application. And if all goes well, which it's not a given, you can get here and get onto appearance. You can pick a new style. I don't know, glow, whatever. You save it. And at this point, you should be able to see glow as an additional style in your application. These styles are also bundled in your executable, so they ship with your applications automatically. So that is really nice. I mean, I'm really happy with being able to do this, because not having this preview, meaning you were like working without seeing, you had to run the application, maybe go through like a number of steps to be able to see your user interface. Now you can use your user interface right from start. But again, you can disable it. You can just get rid of the style by going Windows. Now, again, some components can be styled, but the main application is not. Notice only one thing. This is not enabled by default. So when you start RadStudio or Delphi 11, you will not see the feature until you check this box, enable VCL styles. This is required. We have decided not to enable it by default because there might be some incompatibilities in your code. We were not so certain everything was working nicely. It's the first time we're releasing it, and it's not a trivial feature. So by default, it's off. You will not see styles. You need to enable styles. In theory, you shouldn't restart the IDE, but I do recommend doing it, which reminds me I should do it because I've changed the resolution since I started. If you change the resolution at runtime, it adapts, but there are things that will not work. So if you're changing your screen resolution, like the 200%, 300%, 100% thing, please restart the IDE. It's going to get a slightly better experience. Okay, so that's the thing I wanted to mention. Any question about per control styling or design time styling?
No questions I can see. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Me?
Who's speaking?
That was David.
Okay. Oh, it was David. Dave Nottage. Okay. If you've got a question, just yeah, speak up. Anybody? Nope, we lost Dave.
Okay. All right. In that case, just a question. It is about styles, but it is about FireMicro rather than VCL. Probably applies to both. Styles are great, but every once in a while, I want to set the color of a control. Say it's an edit box that has the wrong data, for example. Can I? Is there a way in the new library to be able to just override and say, you know what, the face color should be red or something like that? Can we do that? Override the style and say,
the two scenarios are really different. On VCL, it's a complete mess. I mean, it's a complete mess to customize the look and feel of a control without adapting a style. And the reason is that this doesn't exist in the operating system. I mean, what we're doing for styling, we are hooking low level into the Windows API and into the component behavior to take over the painting, because some controls have, I don't know, a menu has custom painting supported, but a button doesn't have it. So, and because it's a low level hook, it's really a bit tricky to simulate it with, hey, I want my own color type of thing. However, changing a style is not that difficult. A style in VCL is based on primarily on a single large bitmap. So what you can do is actually you can clone a style. You open that bitmap, you change the colors, maybe just search for a place of colors with a different tint, and save it, and you're done. You have a new style with the colors you want. that's might be the easiest way to change like the color of buttons or things like that. There are instructions out there how to do it. It's not that difficult. On FireMonkey, you have more control, because what FireMonkey does when you are applying a style, well, actually always, is creating a number of sub-objects. So FireMonkey is going to have deep into the style hierarchy, a rectangle which is filled by the color. So at runtime, you can navigate through these objects in memory and find that rectangle and change the color to any color you want. And you do have full control of the elements that make up a style at runtime. So FireMonkey customization ends up being easier compared to VCL, where because we are hooking into Windows, it's fairly tricky. I do have demos of both, but I can't really run them now.
I'll search for that. Okay, thank you very much.
Or email me. I can try to find a couple of links for you. Or send you some of my code. So, okay. So next thing, and that's another thing I'm going to skim through. That's a control we added in 10.4. If you haven't look to it. If you want to a high performance list, I mean that's your component. The idea here is we are fully virtualizing the design of a list item. You are designing one item for the older guys. This uses a lot, actually shared even some code with the old DB control list. That's something that was in Delphi 1 or Delphi 2. The DB control list has this concept: you paint one item and it gets replicated. And this is equally virtualized, meaning you paint one item and then you see how many you want. You get all of them. It's virtual. You are not creating 1 million buttons if you have 1 million list, because that's expensive. You're creating one button, and then the button is painted to screen. The screen is cached, and then it's painted on your screen. I mean, it's painted in memory, cached and painted to your screen. So even when scrolling, it only paints and generates the items that are visible, and they're even cached. So when you're scrolling up and down, it doesn't need to repaint. Now, the trick is that every time one of the items is painted, the system tells you, hey, I'm about to paint item 3. And you can say, hey, okay, item 3, the label has this caption and the button has this image. So you customize the look and feel of a component before painting. It gets painted and they are good to go. This is extremely, the performance is great. We have started to adopt it, like the new welcome page uses a control list. And we are also going to redo the get it component list, which is not working great, with a control list in the future. It's a great component. I mean, I really recommend playing with it. It's a bit strange. It can be confusing at the beginning, but it is extremely powerful. So fully recommended. Number box is just a small toy thing, but it's nice to have. And that's another component we added in 10.4. So I kind of went through this. What we're doing in terms of Windows 11 support and Windows 10 support is really primarily focused on high DPI, and secondary focusing on some of the features like WebView 2 and MSIX and so forth. Now, it basically took us 3 cycles. In 10.3, we did a big jump on with high DPI support in VCL. In 10.4, we adapted high DPI support to VCL styles. In 11, which I still occasionally call 10.5 because that was the original name until a few months ago. In 11, we are applying all of this to the IDE itself. So now the IDE can go high resolution, and it does make a difference. I mean, when you open the IDE in a 4K monitor, it looks a different IDE. I mean, I like it a lot. I mean, I'm honestly very happy. True, it's not perfect. True, there are some leftover windows. Occasionally, you'll see something out of proportion. I think we've gone through easily 1,000 between features and bug fixes just to implement, mostly internal, so they were not publicly reported, just to implement this single feature, if you want to call it that way. And of course, we are, for example, for the images, we are using the new image list, the new image collection. So the images, we have different images of this save button and so forth. I think we have 3 images for each of them at different resolutions. So it's going to scale up and down very nicely by picking a different image, not just stretching it. And fonts are nice and smooth. We even added new font. We are installing new fonts, new open source fonts, because now that we can render fonts nicely, it's nice to have good fonts. So that was one of the biggest things. And the second, as just demonstrated, the big issue in doing high DPI was doing high DPI designer. This is tricky, and honestly, it's not perfect. It has quirks. It was really tricky to do. The current model is that you can, and that's on by default, pick the low resolution, low DPI designer. That means on a 4K monitor, your phone designer will be like really a small stand. I mean, it's so small, it's unusable, honestly, but it respects the pixel coordinates of the original design. So it does not change and alter your form in any way. Recommendation is to go automatic. So when you're on a high screen monitor, your form scales up. You can move to design at high resolution. The application will still run fine on low resolution by scaling down, but that provides you the best experience if your focus is designing a high DPI application. However, if you have a mixed environment and different developers using different scales, you can force a specific DPI. So there's an option to have a custom DPI. So, okay, decide the DPI everyone is using regardless of the DPI of the screen they're designing. It works, it has trouble, and while it's recommended on a team with people with multiple screen, I recommend buy a 4K monitor, all developers, and just go for high resolution. That's the best option. Anyway, this is a big thing. It's going to take a little to get used to, but it was the biggest blocker overall for even building a high DPI IDE is to figure out the designer. We have active styles in the designer, which I just demoed, so I'm not going to say much more here. We've done a couple of other nice things in Delphi 11 that are not related with Windows support, but hey, we have support for macOS 64-bit ARM, so native M1 or Silicon M1. Well, we're calling it M1. It's certainly going to work fine with M2 when that's released. So Apple Silicon Target is now native, so you can build ARM binaries for macOS. Of course, you need a new Mac device to be able to test it, which I don't have, so I can't test it. I cannot demo it. Well, I have one I can reach in the system, but on the company network, but that's different. We also support universal binary, so you can build a single package for the store that has both Intel and ARM, or you can deploy that application to your customers, and depending on their device, it will pick the right bitness for their physical computer. So, but you don't have to care. You don't have to distribute 2 different applications. You distribute one single package. It's going to be big because it has 2 executables, but hey, you distribute a single package and automatically it gets the right bitness. We did 2 small but fun language extensions. We're now supporting binary literals, so you can have a literal value like 4 rather than 4. You can type 100 and so forth. So you can use the binary representation of a number rather than the integer or decimal or hexadecimal representation. And the other thing, you can use a separator for numbers with a lot of digits, like that 1 million thing. A separator is just a simple the compiler is going to ignore. So if you want to separate 2 digits or 4 digits rather than 3, it's up to you. If you want to make the code less readable than without a separator, you'll have a good chance. But the idea is to make big numbers more readable. And same for the binary. It's nice to separate binaries like in octets or 4 bits, 4 bits, 4 bits, and things like that. So you can use the separator every time a number is expected. And well, and we did a few more things, but that's fine. Now there's another theme, and that's going to be probably my last demo. There's another theme that we have implemented heavily in Delphi 11, in VCL, that's in fact also C++ Builder 11, which is what we've been calling VCL modernization. I don't know, it's slightly a misnomer, but I think it delivers the concept. And the concept is, over the years, we accumulated some debt in terms of, hey, we implemented, I don't know, TreeView. T-TreeView in Delphi is just a light wrapper on the platform TreeView common control, what used to be called the common control. But what happened is that Microsoft kept adding features to TreeView, namely checkboxes, and we never surfaced them. Now, it was there. It was only a couple of API calls away, so it wasn't possible to have it, but it wasn't built into the system. It wasn't easily available into an application. So what we've done is go through all of the components that we encapsulate in VCL and check what we missed over the last 5 or times even 10 years and implement it. The biggest gap we had was in ReachEdit. We still have a pre-Windows XP application implementation. ReachEdit 4.1 is the one, I think it was introduced in maybe in 7 or possibly in Vista. I don't know. I mean, it's been quite some time. So now we've mapped to it, but over the years, Microsoft added features like URL detection, transparency, and spell checking, native spell checking into the component. So now all of these features are surfaced with a checkbox. You just go to a property, enable it, and you're good to go. And again, it's ReachEdit and TreeView are probably the most visible, but I think we have at least 50 components that received some improvements. And other improvements are not even based on components. Like, for example, when you have an exception, you can copy the error message. It's nice. There's a copy button. It's nice to have. I mean, you could copy by Control-C, but was, hard to figure out. Now we have a copy button. That's a small nice thing. But I don't know. Another one is Microsoft added an option to allow undo when you are replacing the selected text of an edit. We enable it. It's not on by default because people might want to stick on the old behavior, but we've surfaced that option. We have changed the default font size that was ridiculously small. We've changed the font for a new default application. The Windows imaging control has support for multiple frames, so you can pick the bitmap of the second frame rather than the first frame. There are like a GIF file, and others have multi-frame models and so forth. Again, the list is really long. I guess the doc wiki is now up, so that should be visible. The doc wiki was down yesterday. That was the thing slowing down the official release. Again, it's a lot of work we've done, and I think we went through all of the related quality portal entries. All of the pending, like you are not supporting this Windows feature type of thing. Now there are still VCL requests, but they're like really literally feature requests of something new to build. But I've gone through all that was on the table, and again, we've really done a lot. Some of them are minor, but they all help collectively. With that, I want to demo the ReachEdit at least. I should have it right here. We might even get to the TreeView as well. Okay, it's opening. So this is just a T-ReachEdit, so nothing special per se. And it's actually the old demo. Now there are a few things that are new here. there is show URL hint. So it's going to transform any URL that you type into a hint, and a clickable hint. When clicked, it goes through a specific event handler, which is called link click. It's easy to find. And here I just have a shell execute. So open the page, open the URL type of coding. The other thing is spell checking that is surfaced on, what is that? Oh gosh. Oh, it's down. Spell checking, yeah. So spell checking, you just turn on a flag. And there's also the idea of transparency. So you can have a transparent control that whatever is in the background remains visible through the text. Now, if we run this, what is happening is that if let me actually type something new, because that's a better demo. My blog, https://blog.com. It automatically becomes an hyperlink. Well, it's also wrong, nicely. Should be working. So two things here: working because I misspelled it. It becomes underlined. You right click and it has a way to help you fix the spelling. This uses again, it's 100% Windows. You have not really much control there. It uses the dictionary of the local version of the locale of the version of Windows. So I guess going to use an Australian dictionary if you're there and you have the right locale and regional settings. If I had an Italian version of Windows, I would use Italian as a language, let's say German, Japanese, whatsoever. And the other thing is the hyperlink. I can click, well, ask me for confirmation and should just shell execute the thing. This VM is a bit slow, but it's going to come up and open the page in the browser. So it's relatively simple. We've also added a lot in terms of font control, paragraph setting controls. That's a bit more complicated to demo, but there are a lot of change in the way you can control the appearance and the font and the paragraph settings and all of the properties of the control. Let's say we should have a minute for the tree view as well. It's actually fairly simple. It's just a tree view with checkboxes. Once you run it, you can enable the checkboxes. The property used to be called checkable items. Now it's called checkboxes. So the caption here is actually wrong. And they are multi-state, so you can have them enabled, disabled, or you can also have alternative selections. You have themes, exclusion. So there are multiple options and renderings that you can apply. It's actually fairly complicated. You have a bunch of styles, and these are all directly available in the control and the properties. Okay, let me see, what else did I want to cover? Oh, what is we had 2 seconds aside on FireMonkey. In FireMonkey for Windows, we have done a big jump, which might cause a bit of incompatibility, honestly, although we're trying to minimize. We are moving to use these coordinates in pixel-based units to device-independent units, which is what FireMonkey used to do on all platforms, mobile and more recently also on Mac. Now the same idea that when you say this button is at position 20, you're not saying pixel, but you're saying coordinates. That what FireMonkey was doing to support high DPI was still converting those 10 pixels into 20 real pixels on a high screen monitor. But reality is that was causing scaling issues, and at times it wasn't allowing to produce a crisp interface, because yes, true, it was scaling the position, but it was also scaling like the width of a line. But you might want to have a thin line on a high screen monitor. So just by rebuilding your Windows UI with FireMonkey in RStudio 11, you will get some more crisp and smooth UI. Fonts are more crisp, and some of the UI rendering is more crisp, and it really does make a difference. So that's relevant. We also added the Edge View 2 control. That's in the following slide, and improved our Android support quite a bit. So I'll do a 2-minute summary of other things in Delphi 11, RStudio 11 I haven't touched on. Main focus was IDE, and I've covered most of it. We've expanded a lot the Delphi LSP quality, and also added support for Visual Studio Code editing. I mean, Delphi LSP engine support for Visual Studio Code editing. So you're using the Delphi compiler to validate your code and provide suggestion within Visual Studio Code. The new welcome page, which I think I just skimmed through earlier, and you can see here. And notice this is implemented using the new T control list. So it should be smoother. And the older one was based on Internet Explorer and was HTML, JavaScript rendering. This is fully native. It has customization because you can decide which areas you want. You can remove one area if you don't like it. Okay, and then of course you can like expand another area to make it bigger. That's probably going to be ugly, but hey, whatever. So it's flexible, and in the future, we are going to open the API for creating these individual gadgets. So what we envision is that people can come up and, I don't know, have a GitHub integration, have a, I don't know, build system, status integration, gadget. It's VCL code. You can do whatever you want. I mean, it's going to be very flexible. And the idea, you'll be able to create these gadgets and have and display what you want with some rules and some limitation, but relatively open. What else? We have changed the minimal installer a bit. That's fine, but minor. I touched on the Delphi compiler change. Beside the VCL modernization, we did a lot of RTL quality performance in runtime library, which is actually listed here. Zip file support, 64-bit data structures, Bluetooth LE. We did a lot of work, and the last thing we've added is target support for Windows Linux subsystem for our Linux. It's officially supported now. So you can run your Linux application, including user interface Linux application on Windows, which is quite funny, I have to say. So that's it. That's kind of the summary of what's in the product. In case you missed the launch webinar yesterday, there is a recording. Will be shared.
Great.
So
Thank
that's
you
it.
very much, Marco. We will take some questions in just a moment. So have a think about throwing some questions at Marco. We've got the prize draw coming up. We'll have a brief break. I'm just waiting on our President Jeffrey to just confirm the break time. So do we have any questions for Marco?
Yeah, I see a few hands. Oh, no, there are clapping hands. Okay.
I think the clapping hand is the question. I think if that's the action. I think Lachlan, have you got a question, or was that a clap?
Oh well, a clap on the VCL enhancements to all the controls that were out of date. That's a really good, nice feature. Thanks very much for that. But a question, just there with the Bluetooth LE enhancements, Bluetooth Classic on iOS. I've been trying to determine whether or not it's supported or not. There seems like it was added recently. Is it accessible from Delphi or not?
I haven't checked recently in terms of platform support until last year or something. The API was available, but for an application to use that API would require paying Apple, I don't know, like
Yeah, there was
$20,000 fee or something for per application, which is just totally insane.
It's probably worthwhile looking at again. I think they've changed it somehow. It's a little unclear, but you might be able to get more to the bottom of it.
We can double check. Until recently, it was, I mean, technically we could support it, but it was like, was no pointer because
it was ridiculous. So
we had to pay Apple, and each of the developers would have to pay Apple for each application. And the restriction is because they don't want people to create hardware that does weird things with their devices. But hey, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's one of the Apple things. But no, we can double check and consider supporting it if that's because the API is the same API they're using on macOS, so it's not really a big deal to support the API. But it was a restriction on their side. Apple has a ton of restrictions on the platform. There are a ton of things we wish we could do differently, and including the question everyone keeps asking. Why do I need a Mac to build for iOS? And well, ask Apple. I mean, they're setting the rules. There's really nothing we can do. We haven't really, honestly, we haven't done improvements, meaning new features for Bluetooth LE, but we had significant problems on each of the 4 platforms we support. And we've tried to address at least the most significant ones. We've tried to address them all, but the idea was really because it had hiccups depending on your version of Windows 10, depending on some device incompatibility, and then the discovery was troublesome on some platforms. So we spent quite some effort in that space.
Okay, we have at least 4 more questions. Keep them coming in. Sean Cunniff, if you could.
Yep.
Marco,
Sean here. The T control list, can it do across and down? Like, can I create a grid on screen in FireMonkey?
Oh, the control list is VCL only. FireMonkey has a similar concept, but not the same thing. So the control list I mentioned is VCL. It allows going across. So it has the multi-column concept. And in fact, this is a multi-column. It's a 2 columns thing. And it's not a 2 columns thing. It expands. I mean, the wider the screen, the more columns you get. Because the items has a fixed size. So if they fit, is going to fit more on the side. So this is an actual implementation. And when you do multi-column, you can decide if you go horizontal. So if this is, I think this is over. This is the first item. This is the second. This is the third. But you can also go by column. You go down and then a new. And that point the scroller becomes horizontal. So you're scrolling horizontally to see new columns rather than vertically to see new items below. So it's quite flexible. The specifics says 1 selected items only. It hasn't got multiple selection by design, and all items same size.
Yep.
That's the other rule.
That's the requirement I have. I'm sort of the particular application I'm thinking of is like it's almost a calendar type thing, but it's got other aspects as well. But so if, fixed columns, rows, and I want to put a panel in there with controls on it. Okay, so there's something in FireMonkey to do that.
There is something in FireMonkey similar. The problem with FireMonkey is that because it is more flexible in terms of the item design. If you're using a list view in FireMonkey, you can design the individual items. So it's kind of the similar concept.
Mm-hmm.
However, the drawback is that FireMonkey is going to create those items. So if you're creating 1 million items, you're creating 1 million items with 1 million panels, with 1 million buttons, with 1 million rectangles, with 1 million fonts, with. And
I'm already doing that programmatically anyway.
It's not going to. Oh, no, it's done by you. The problem is that performance will suffer a bit. So it's not as, this one is extremely scalable, because if you say, I want 1 million, it's going to say, yes, thanks. Yes, sure, period. It's going to do nothing. It's not going to create anything in memory for your 1 million items. It's just going to be one by one as needed. So that where you gain a lot of performance.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for the presentation today. It's been really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep the questions coming. Brian Watson.
Marco, when we moved to Delphi 10.4, we were very excited to try out the new DPI functions. And when we put it into our UI test program, it was absolutely fantastic. And then when we actually put it into our DLL-based implementation of our product, none of it was there. And we don't get any of the high DPI or any of the DPI benefits of Delphi in 10.4. What about Delphi 11?
It's going to be the same because we're actually, I think we fixed the bug like 2 days ago. Oh, well, not really fixed the bug. I mean, the core issue, and there is a workaround for it. So again, we can follow up over email. Maybe that's better. But in short, what happens is that we are leveraging some APIs. In particular, the image collection uses the Windows imaging component. The Windows imaging component, though, is a COM object. So when you put everything in a DLL, if you are not calling co-initialize, and you're not calling co-initialize in the right spot, which is the tricky part, nothing works, because COM is disabled in a DLL that hasn't got a call to co-initialize. So the workaround is calling co-initialize, but the tricky thing is calling co-initialize before the weak component is first created. That is not trivial, but it is doable with 10.4 and with 11. In the future, we are going to basically allow a couple of the controls to delay their creation. So the issue becomes easier to solve by just putting a co-initialize call somewhere and everything will do, because these calls that are troublesome are going to be delayed a little compared to the initialization of the library. But I think it is fixable today. And again, I can provide these specifics. I know there is a bug report with a bunch of support information on workarounds. We can follow up over email.
Okay, terrific. Thanks.
Just an update on the timing. We're looking at 1:45, so in about 10 minutes time, we'll have the prize draw. I've posted a link to the prize list. So I think most of you would have done this before. For anyone that's new, the prize list is, everyone has about a 50% chance of getting a prize. Hey, not like the old days where everybody gets a prize, but 50%, still pretty good. Prizes ranging anywhere from $50 up to the big prize, Delphi license, either enterprise or pro license. It's worth around $9,000. So yeah, check out the prize list. So we'll keep going with some questions from Marco. And in the meantime, everyone just check out that list. So at 1:45, we'll start the prize draw. Next question from Peter McGaw, is it?
Yep, Marco, just with the software I work on is based around the multi-document interface. Is there any reason why that wouldn't work with HDPI?
Yeah, there are lots of reasons that won't work. So that's a question that comes up often. And the reality is that the MDI is based, that our VCL support for MDI is based on the operating system support for MDI, which is a quirk in itself, has been from the beginning. The problem now is that Microsoft has totally gave up. And so if you create like a native platform without using VCL, a native platform application using the Windows API, some of the items will just get messed up. They will not scale properly. Like it's simple things like the close button that automatically added to the child frame and so forth are troublesome. So we have been trying to find fixes, and we have implemented a few here and there over the years, but I know personally there's at least a dozen significant issues when you're doing MDI on high DPI, even more if you go styling. But it's, again, the problem is not styling, the problem is the core. Now, the only real solution, there are only two options out of it. I mean, three options. One is convince all of our customers to move to something else, but I understand. I mean, it's not that bad of a UI after all. I mean, I've been using it in the past, not so much these days, but it does make sense. So, but Microsoft has decided you'll have to move on. But I'm certain we have dozens, if not hundreds, of customers that still rely on it. So it's not going away. I mean, people might need it for the app. They don't want to change. They want to retrain all the users. So the second option is the least likely is that Microsoft fixes it. I don't think it stands a chance. The third option that we have been looking into, it's not been our top priority, is rebuilding from scratch. So in theory, VCL could create an MDI model that does not use the operating system in any way, just a fake MDI, if you want to call it. At that point, we have full control. We can fix it. I mean, I know we can fix it. Now, it's going to be an investment. So we've been thinking about it. We haven't done that investment. It's not going to be easy. I mean, it is a lot of work, but I think it is the options that we currently have on the table, and we will discuss again. Asking for it and sending emails to myself and others can help. I mean, understanding like what's blocking a migration and why it matters. If we have like 100 customers email us, we can go to upper management and say, hey, we must do it. So kind of, but no, we have requests, we are monitoring it. Having some more reasons could help. Now, it's not going to be easy and simple. If we're doing it, we're not doing it until 12. I mean, it's not like an update thing. We want at least to give it, I personally would love to give it a try. And again, the system is so insane. I don't know if that's just showing how old I am. The reason that an MDI child window cannot have a menu is not a graphical issue, is not a user interface design issue, is not a decision of someone. It's technically because MDI child windows recycle the field used for the menu to put the child ID. I mean, that's as insane as it is. And that was never changed from Windows, on the first version of Windows with MDI, which I think was Windows 3. It was never changed. They are recycling an internal field for two different unrelated purposes, but that way they're killing the menu because, hey, the field is used for the MDI child. You can't, I mean, if you set a menu, you're changing the child. That's a handle, it's an integer, it's the same thing. So that's how insane MDI is under the hood. So, but again, it is technically replaceable. It's not rocket science. So it's under consideration.
Okay, thank you.
5 minutes to go to the prize draw. Matthias, question.
Yeah. I wanted to ask a question regarding the DPI awareness that is now supporting monitor-based, and I've changed that setting in one of my projects, and most of the customers were quite happy, and in particular with saving column positions and widths in a binary file and loading them again right afterwards. But there's one guy who's running his application under Apple Parallels, and he said it mucked it entirely up, and I wasn't able to figure out what's wrong, so I had to revert to the old setting. And obviously, the other customers who are on Windows didn't complain, but well, that's so nice. And the guy who was on Parallels said, "Perfect, I like it a lot, and I don't know what to do."
Yeah, That's something I've heard. I think Parallels reports wrong DPI information to the operating system, and it messes up the some of the scenario. It's I've seen that report. I know also that running the IDE under Parallels on Mac is not smooth. VM Fusion does a slightly better job there, and again, mostly related to monitor and DPI configuration. So in theory, I mean, Parallels should fix the issue and report the right scaling. But
I agree.
Yeah, the other option would be, in theory, you could figure out, hey, is this running on Parallels? It might be possible, and disable it for that one user. But I know it's going to be tricky. Yeah, I'm not surprised because I've seen similar reports.
Thanks.
There's bound to be some process running that's only happens when you're running in Parallels. So for those aren't aware, Parallels is a virtual machine running on Mac. So yeah, just like with VMware, if you're running VMware,
but of course,
there'll
now,
still be something running.
Yeah, but of course now things are
helper. There's a set of helper tools that get installed and run all the time that allow you to change, exchange clipboard and all sorts of things. So that's sure to be running.
Right.
Yeah, but notice that things are running things on virtualized Windows on Mac is getting tricky, because now you have customers that have an ARM Mac, which can run ARM version of Windows, which in turn can support running 32-bit and 64-bit Intel application, but we are never going to officially support it. I mean, they're like 2 layers, 3 layers in between. I mean, it's going to be subject to issues. That's what it is.
Lachlan, question from you.
Yeah, string indexing. How likely are we to see that be unified across the different platforms?
Oh, it has. Well, it's somehow has been unified. So right now, the default, that's for both memory management and string management, is the same throughout all platforms we support. So right now, if you create a new application, all strings are 0 base, like good old style, throughout all platforms. You can manually change the flag to the non-zero base string. So at the string level, everything is unified. However, the string helper, which started on 1 base strings, is staying on 1 base string. So the traditional APIs and interfaces are 0 base. The string helper interfaces are 1 base. I think that's going to stay because it's really difficult to revert it.
What about the string, just like string indexing operator?
That's been unified since 10.4, I think.
So you're saying on Windows, strings are starting at 0?
Yes, but also on iOS and Android, by default, they're starting at 0. You can disable 0 base string compiler flag, but we changed the default in 10.4, reverting back to like the default is the same all over. At the same time, we moved off the ARC on mobile in 10.4. So I don't know, maybe there is a bug and it's not working, but the idea is that it should have been unified at the 10.4 time frame.
Okay.
And honestly, I think it was a mistake to go that route. There's been a time where the desire was the idea was we were going to make a significant breaking change in the language to modernize it and appeal to new mobile developers and so forth. That's the reason for ARC. There was a concept of going with unmutable strings like .NET and many other platforms do. It has advantages. Also implementing strings pieces as there are some weird implementation of strings making it very fast. But at the end of the day, that would have provided a fairly bad backwards compatibility experience. Same reason, I mean, in theory, one of the old ideas that even before I joined was, hey, at some point we'll move Arc on Windows. I mean, honestly, there's no way. I mean, that will break, I mean, billions and billions of lines of existing code that are working fine. So it was easier to break the mobile code because there wasn't as much and say, hey, sorry, go back to regular memory management on mobile. So that's what we did.
Can I sneak in one quick one? The LSP engine, is that used now for more things in the IDE, such as refactoring? Is that starting to happen?
Oh, no, we're not there. We're not even close. We have improved it, and it understands that indexes include files, understands arrays, understands a bunch of things was not understanding in 10.4.2. It's also a bit more solid. It has some automatic restart of the engine when things go weird. So it should work significantly better. We have removed the old one. The reason for removing the old one is that it was causing significant trouble and instability in the IDE. And there are a few things that have been cleaned up in terms of code parsing, bringing them up to date to the language. But the entire refactoring, the code formatting, and a few other subsystems are still not aware of like inline variables and modern language features. So it's going to, the plan is to use a single engine for everything, but it's going to take multiple releases to get there.
Okay, well, I think we're about due to start the draw. So we've got a chance for just one more question if anyone's got a quick one to drop in. No more questions. Yes, Matthias.
No, that was just another clapping at the end.
Oh, just a happy clap. Oh, yeah, well, everybody. Thank you, Marco, for joining us once again. One of our most frequent presenters over the years. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Marco, I just noticed you had a new book that you put out last year.
One.
What was that one? Yeah,
it's an
Object
update.
Pascal handbook.
Yeah, it covers everything in the language, save for the digit separators we've just added. But it's been significantly rewritten to take into account like inline variables and other modern things. And also it's been rewritten for consistency of the formatting with the new language language guidelines that we've released this summer. So yeah, it's a cleaner and should be a better book compared to the previous edition. Yeah, and it's available. The PDF is free from Embarcadero, so you should be able to download it. The printed version, I know they printed in Australia. Amazon enabled that, so I had to check a box. Hey, want to print in Australia? Sure. So it's a print-on-demand book. So.
Oh, okay. So is Amazon arranging that?
Yeah. I was already working with CreateSpace, which is the company Amazon bought to do desktop publishing, and so it's now part of the Kindle thing, but it's still printed. So I think it's also available as Kindle. I'm not sure if I'm selling it. Yeah, it's fine.
All right. Okay. Well, I think we are ready to go. Jeff, are you around there? You ready to go? We're going to get Jeff to show his desktop running the prize draw software.
There's one more question.
Many of us have been developing software for our customers for quite a while now. We help our customers find solutions to their problems. But there's one problem that most of us don't have a good solution for, and that's when your customer asks you. That's not an easy question for a solo developer to answer, but the Continuity Group is here to help you with that. We'll help you put plans in place that will give your customer peace of mind that their investment in your software is safe. So come find us during the breaks today, and learn more about how we help Delphi developers answer these questions and more.